Till date, some of our friends, not Yorubas, not Nigerians, but their ancestors, were in Africa some centuries ago, like 4 or 5 centuries ago, are still unhappy that I stated the raw fact, which is that the Yoruba people are not Israelites. That the term Yoruba Jews is a misnomer, an anomaly. To say Yoruba Jews is like saying the English German. The Yorubas are an ethnic group. The Jewish people are an ethnic group. They are two different ethnic groups with totally different histories and totally different cultures. If you say the Igbo Jews, you will only be correct in the sense that the Jews, the term Jew represents the Israelites and the Hebrews today, and Igbo means Hebrew. That's the simple explanation. But these gentlemen, unfortunately, allow themselves to be misled by the falsehood that there is a particular DNA that is Israelite. It starts with, in their own case, it starts with EB. And they claim, or they are alleged, that that they studied the Igbo DNA, studied the Yoruba DNA, and found that both groups belong to the EB haplotype or whatever. I mean, if any such study is done, even though I know that such a study is totally without importance, I would know, because I'm the #1 person as far as this subject is concerned. And I can tell you, you can take it to the bank, no study, no comparative study of the Igbo and the Yoruba DNA has been done. So, I will continue to help these individuals who have been misled by harm genetic studies and by studies like the Hebraisms of West Africa, which devoted up to 200 pages talking about Jews in Africa, but the group it focused on sees circumcision as an abomination and did not mention that. Imagine, when you talk about Jews, Israelites, Hebrews, Igbos, and you don't talk about circumcision, you've not started to talk. But people have spent a lot of time, spent a lot of resources, accumulated mileage, looking at books like the Hebraisms of West Africa, which, by the way, its author never visited Africa, and have also allowed themselves to believe the impossible, that genetic studies alone can determine who is British, who is Israelite, who is anything. I'm sorry that some people have such a predicament. So when you tell them the facts as it is, they are unhappy. But if we are afraid of saying the truth, we would not be telling the Igbos what we are telling the Igbos today. We are telling the Igbos that in spite or despite the depredations of colonialism, which removed the Igbo people from Omenana, placed a large number of them in Christianity. Christianity is not the Igbo religion, can never fit the Igbos. What will always be the Igbo religion and what will fit the Igbo people is Omenana. We are saying this, so why would we hesitate to also tell people that want to learn the facts that the Yorubas are not Israelites, we are not Israelites, and will never be Israelites, and this does not mean that the Yoruba people are not a great people. As of today, they are doing far better than the Igbos. But do they have any connections to the Israelites? Zero. No such connection exists. And I will again use one powerful tradition to tell those that are interested in just the hard, raw fact that the Yorubas are not Israelites. Even these people that are not Nigerians, that are not Yorubas, but are interested in foisting the Jewish identity on the Yoruba people, I'm sure they know about the iconic figure, the greatest musician to come out of Nigeria in modern times, Fela Kuti. Even though there is speculation that he has some Sierra Leonean background, But he's Yoruba. He was Yoruba. We know he was Yoruba in the sense that the father, the mother, all were identified with a Yoruba town called Abeokuta. This is a Yoruba town. That's where Obasanjo came from. Wole Soyinka, the Nobel laureate, also has a connection to that town. When Fela died, Fela was buried in Lagos. No Igbo have the importance of Fela will be buried outside his compound. This is Israelite culture. Jacob, who was renamed Israel, pleaded with his most lustrous son, Joseph, ensure that my body returns to my own land when I'm gone. And when Joseph himself was going, he appealed, he pleaded, he begged his brothers that they should take the body home. Ultimately, we just gave you the case about Fela. Fela was buried in Lagos, but Fela did not come from Lagos. Where Fela came from, Abeokuta, is used as a museum today. At the current level of the Igbos, in spite of the Christianization, the colonization, this is still something the Igbos will view as an abomination. And this is something the biblical Israelite would frown at. We saw the lessons very clearly in Genesis. Israel himself, Joseph, pleading that they be returned home. And this is still a tradition in modern Judaism. Jews that can afford it are always returned to Israel to be buried, even if they died in Europe or the United States. So what are we saying? Abiola, Nigerians remember him as the man who won the June 12 election but was not allowed to rule Nigeria. He was buried in Lagos. But I am saying this, you can verify. Even Igbos in their 20s who have achieved no success would not be buried outside, not just their own homes. I mean, not just outside, not that just that they will not be buried outside Igbo land, but they will not be buried outside their own homestead. So, ladies and gentlemen, the EB1 blah 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 haplotype is not going to tell you who is the Israelite. And I'm still repeating that no studies saw any DNA haplotype identified with Igbos that matched whatever is identified with the Yorubas. The Hausa oral traditions is very clear about the origins of the Yorubas. And these oral traditions that we studied in school, that is called Banza Bokwe, identifies the Yoruba people as one of the subaltern groups of people that are close to the Hausas. And by the way, what does it take a Hausa person to learn the Yoruba language? Or what does it take the Yoruba person to learn the Hausa language? Very little. Or the Yoruba person to learn Arabic? Very little. But not Hebrew. A Yoruba girl that I helped studied the Igbo language and Hebrew. This Yoruba girl did not study the Yoruba language and Hebrew because you don't go about comparing the Greek language and the Ashanti language. These are two different languages. What she did was compare Igbo and Hebrew, because these are the languages that share so much. I repeat what I said. A Yoruba girl, her thesis is still at the University of Ibadan, the first university in Nigeria. Go there and look at it. If there are similarities between Yoruba and Hebrew, she would have compared Yoruba and Hebrew, but she didn't. She compared Igbo and Hebrew. And the result is that Igbo and Hebrew are genetically related. And by the way, we know that there are people who think it confers some honor, some prestige, some dignity to be identified as Jews. No. In the case of the Igbos, the identification as Jews only led to incitements and genocide. If Igbos have benefited anything from being identified as Jews by the Yorubas and other Nigerians, it was genocide. That was what Igbos benefited. The state of Israel has not carried the burdens of the Igbos. It has not in any way helped Igbos more than it has helped other groups. It has in fact helped other groups more than it has helped Igbos. But the Igbos are the normal Igbos, the Igbos that have vision, are saying who they are and what they are, because as it is important for the Jewish community not to be disconnected from the Israelite identity, so is it important to the Igbo people not to be disconnected from the Israelite identity. The Jews need it as much as we do. They are co-inheritors. We are not Israelites because we became Israelites through them. No. They don't have as better claims to the Israelite identity than we have. And this is the history. This is the fact. I'm always waiting to take up a challenge from any quarter of the world on this subject. Thank you. Have a beautiful day.